Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Today I want to share with you a very exciting news. I am going to go on a trip to Europe for 1 month, traveling to different cities, different countries, and going with different people. So it's overwhelming. There's a lot on the itinerary, but it's going to be super fun, super exciting. So I thought I want to share some of the travel tips with you. I am no travel expert by any means, but I have traveled quite a lot and I have learned a lot along the way. There are so many travel tips and I can't fit everything in one video. So I picked out the top 10 to share with you guys and I hope that you find these helpful. Towards the end, I'm going to share with you some of the tips when it comes to shopping in Europe. So let's get right into it. Tip number 1 is the weather. This one is an obvious one and we all should think about this one, but believe it or not, many people tend to overlook the weather when they plan the trip. Weather plays a very important role. Just make sure that you check the weather of the destination you're going to so that you can plan your itineraries and also to pack accordingly because you don't want to overpack and you don't want to underpack either. Number 2 is to pack light. I have to learn this myself the hard way. I used to pack a lot of clothes, extra clothes. I didn't check the weather. I just pack whatever I think I want to wear and get in there. I might not be using half of the things that I brought. So I learned along the years that I've traveled to pack light and keep everything at minimal. The more you bring, the more you have to carry with you, the more hassle it is when you travel. To learn how to pack light, meaning that wherever I go, I would only bring one carry-on and a personal item. It doesn't matter if I'm going on a week trip or 2 weeks trip or a month trip, I am bringing only one carry-on and a personal item. Packing light, it helps you to be mobile, especially if you have to be on the go so often, and it helps with not having to pay extra fees. In a lot of countries in Europe, when you fly within Europe, a lot of those budget-friendly airlines, which tend to be cheaper. I usually pick the cheapest airline when I travel in between small countries, like for short flights. That's just to save money. But most of those airlines, they don't give you a check-in bag. Sometimes you have to pay for a carry-on too. The less you carry, the more money you will save. Also, you save a lot of time as well because if you have to check in your bag, you have to wait in line to check in your bag. During my last trip, my girlfriend, towards the end of the trip, she had to buy a luggage and the line to check in her bag was 2 hours long. Once you check in your bag, you have to go through security. So it's such a hassle and very time consuming. If you don't have a check bag, you would save yourself hours in line. And then when you get to your next destination, you also have to wait to get your check bag if you check it in. And then another thing is that with so many things going on with airlines nowadays, a lot of airlines are losing luggages. So I would avoid all of that. That saves me a lot of money, headaches, and a lot of time as well. So just bear that in mind, trying to keep everything at a carry-on size. I have tons of packing tips, which I am planning to do a video on that next week. If you are interested in how I pack and the tips that I have when packing, tune in next week for that particular video on packing tips. Tip number 3, let's talk money. So trying to get the cash in the currency of the country you are traveling to. For instance, I am traveling to Europe. I went to my bank and I ordered euros with my bank. So I have this cash with me in advance. This just to avoid a couple things. First is I will have the cash ready with me. So by the time that I arrive, I don't have to go exchange money. And also it saves you money when you exchange with your bank. It doesn't apply in all cases, but typically when you order with your bank, you do save a little bit more because your bank will charge you less than if you were at your destination and you go to a currency exchange. Those places will charge you more because that's how they make money. It's always good to have cash when you travel. So be sure to get your cash in advance if you can. Other than the cash, I always recommend to bring more than 1 or 2 credit cards and an ATM. And also bring your driver license. Even though you don't plan to rent a car, you don't plan to drive, still bring a driver license with you. Things that you don't plan, it might happen spontaneously. If I want to rent a car, I would need my driver license. Not every country will require international driver license. Most of them, they would just accept your country's driver license. So if you have that, you can rent a car. But if you don't have your driver license, they won't let you rent a car. Even if you have a copy, they won't take it. They would need an actual driver license. Another tip when it comes to credit card and money, it's I always split up my credit card. So let's say I have my passport. So in here, I will have some of my travel cards, and then I would put 2 credit cards in here, or maybe an ATM card and 2 credit cards in here, and my driver license. When I get to the hotel, I would put all of my documents and all of my cards and cash into the safe, and I will only take enough with me to spend for that day. So with credit card, just split them up. You know, I take 2 credit cards with me on a given day out, a little bit of cash when I'm out and about, and then when I run out of the cash the next day, I'll just refill it. But that way, just to protect myself from losing all my cards and all my money. That would be a bad situation to be in. When it comes to your travel documents, such as your passport, driver license, what I do is I make a hard copy of all of my legal and travel documents. I also screenshot it. In my phone, I would have a folder for travel documents, and then I would put all of my legal documents in there. It's just also to make it easier. Well, let's say when you have to fill out documents, you don't have to pull out your passport. You can just pull out the picture from your phone, and if you keep it organized in its own folder, it makes it easier for you to locate the document. And since we are on the topic of credit cards, I recommend to get yourself some really good travel credit cards. Just be sure that when it comes to using credit card that you're responsible about it, and also to be mindful of it, because it's easy to charge your credit card. I always have to keep in mind that whatever I am spending on my card is things that I could actually afford to pay with my cash as well. I just prefer to pay with credit cards because they come with a lot of perks. I usually pay my balance right after I use it, or within a few days. The most I keep it is a month. The longer you keep, the more interest you have to pay. With that being said, travel credit cards are highly rewarding. So most of the credit card give you like a sign up bonus points. It gives you a certain amount of points, and those points can be redeemed for money. It can be redeemed for hotel or flights. And also as you use the cards, it gives you points. So you can accumulate points, and then turns all those points into paying for your travel. So when I travel, most of my hotels and flights are paid for just by simply using those credit cards to get points. Second is that most of the travel credit cards, like for example, I have this American Express Platinum. This one has a hefty fee, so I wouldn't recommend this for like your first travel credit card, but it comes with a lot of perks that it kind of offset the fees. I also have the Chase Sapphire credit card. The preferred one is a really good for like your first travel credit card because it doesn't come with a lot of fee. This one is the American Express Bond Void. It gives me enough points for every time I travel. Part of my trip's hotel is paid for, but I just need partially using this card. There's so many different credit cards that you can get perks from. So that's one of the perks, is you get all these points that you can turn it around and redeem for free hotel and free flights. So that way, half of your trip, if not all of your trip, is paid for. So it helps a lot in the long run, because either way, if you're going to spend the money anyway, then might as well get something in return. That's how I look at it. So tip number 5 is to get your TSA Precheck or your global entry. TSA Precheck is such a big help, especially during high season. Before you get to your gate, you have to go through security. So TSA Precheck, you have to apply for it and get approved, which is very easy to get approved. I don't know if you ever noticed, but when you get to the security, there is a big line with everybody in it. And then there's always like a separate line that say TSA Precheck. And that line is for the people that already have TSA Precheck approved. So you would go in a shorter line. And also with TSA Precheck, you don't have to take off your hat. You don't have to take off your shoes, your light jacket. So you just go right through. Because travel is a lot of work. It's fun. It's definitely fun. I would do it every day if I could. But it is a lot of work when you actually have to go through everything. It's a lot of hassle to travel. Anything that I can do to reduce the work and the hassle when it comes to travel, I would do it. And TSA is the must-have. If you travel a lot, it's so worth it. Just keep in mind that TSA is only for the United States. When you go out of country, none of that applies. But at least when you go to the US airports, all of the airports in the US have TSA Precheck. The second thing that worth mentioning is global entry. Global entry is another application that you have to get approved by the Homeland Security. How it works is that it helps you for when you return back to the US from out of country. So let's say if I go to Europe and I come back to the US. The first airport that I enter into the US is the airport that I have to go through immigration and custom. So global entry is just a way to help you go through immigration and custom faster. And if you don't have that, you have to wait in line. For example, the line at LAX is usually an hour to 2 hours. I see hundreds of people in line and there's like 5 people over here and there's like 20 machines that you can use. So usually these machines are empty because not everybody knows about global entry. So this is what a global entry looks like. It's like a driver license card. It has all of the numbers, all of the information in the back here. And then in the front, it just have your date of birth and stuff like that. You don't need the card for when you travel. It's automatically in the system already. Some airport, I think you would have to scan your passport, but some airport, they have these upgraded machine where you stand in front of the camera and it scan your face. With the global entry and the TSA, you have to renew it every 4 years. But did you know that if you have your global entry, it works as your TSA Precheck as well. So you don't have to apply for 2 of them like separately. That means just go ahead and get your global entry and that will cover your global entry and your TSA Precheck. So you don't have to pay for 2 separate things. Or you don't have to pay for it at all if you get one of these credit cards that I mentioned earlier. Not all of them will give you this perk, but I know for sure that the Chase Sapphire Reserve, another one, it's the American Express Platinum card. They will pay for my global entry and my TSA fees. I just have to use the card to pay for the fee, and then they will automatically reimburse me for that fee. And then every 4 years, I will use the card to pay for the renewal, and they will reimburse me again. So they will reimburse me for global entry and TSA Precheck every 4 years. The next perk that some of these credit cards give me is Priority Pass. So that takes us to tips number 6. Priority Pass is the pass that give you access to airport lounges. And typically you would have to pay, I think, a membership fee to have this pass. I don't know how much it is because I never had to pay for one. I always have it for free. That's just by having these travel credit cards. I can't tell you how important airport lounge is. It really makes a big difference when you travel, especially when you travel a lot. It makes such a big difference. First of all, you save money by not having to buy food and drinks at the airport. If you have access to airport lounge, you can go into the lounge and you can enjoy yourself. There are food and drink for you, and you can drink and eat as much as you can. Some of the lounge will have massage chair, shower. A lot of them have full-on bar. It's very nice. It comes so handy, especially when you have a long layover or if your flights are delayed. So if your flight is delayed and you're already at the airport, instead of like a 1 hour layover, now you have 3 hours layover. At least you can go to the lounge and relax. And the long layover, it would be more comfortable and it would go by faster. However, most of the lounge only give you access to the lounge about 3 hours before your flight. So let's say if you have a 9 hours layover, they're not gonna let you be in the lounge 9 hours before your flight. So that's the tip, is to get access to the lounge. And that's just another thing to make your trip a little bit more comfortable, because again, traveling is a lot of work. So whatever that can make myself more comfortable, I would take advantage of it. Another tip is for security, for any airport actually. When you go through security, you can't bring any liquid over 3.4 ounces. But did you know that you can bring frozen liquid through security and it doesn't matter what size? Which means you can bring in ice, you can bring in frozen coffee, frozen tea. I have done it myself. So when I travel, every time I go through airport, I always make sure to bring myself one of these hydro flasks. Before I head out to the airport, I will fill it up with ice and then I would go through security with it. So if I go on a longer flight, I would bring my favorite drink. Typically it's a milk tea or like coffee, and I would freeze it the night before. So by the time that I go to the airport, it's frozen. You just have to make sure that at the time that you go through security, that your drink, whatever it is is still frozen. And with the ice, once I go through security with my bottle of ice, most of the airports in the US will have those water fountain, and then I fill it up with water. If I can save money buying things inside the airport, I would rather save that money and spend it at my destination. Tips number 7, we're gonna talk about flight delays. With everything going on in the world today, things are very unpredictable. A lot of flights being canceled daily. My own advice is that the day before your flight and the day off, up until a few hours before your flight, always check your messages and your emails. Because if any delays, any updates, any changes to your flight, the airline will email you, will message you. So always check that. It's always good to know as early as possible so that you can find a solution for it. If your flight is delayed before you even leave to the airport, so at least if you're home, then you can make changes to your itinerary. Call the airline right away so that you can try to get them to put you on the very next flight. Many airlines will code share with each other. Even if you don't know who is working with who, you can just ask them, okay, well, who else can you put me on the next plane with? They will look at the different options for you, but you kind of have to tell them. Usually, like if you just tell them, okay, can you book me on the next flight? They're like, oh yeah, there's nothing available. The next one available is tomorrow. So then you just go with it, right? But if you push them enough, they will go the extra step and put you on the next flight with another airline. Let's say if your flight is delayed for longer than 3 hours where you can't go into the lounge, then just look at your airport. Let's say if your flight is delayed until the next morning and you're already at the airport and you don't want to leave because it's only like 8-9 hours. If you leave, you have to come back right away. It's not worth it. You might as well just stay at the airport, but it's like 9 hours. What are you going to do? A lot of the airports will have areas where you can relax. You just have to pay for this like little cubicle thing and you can sleep in there. But I know a handful of airports will have hotel within the gates area. I know that Istanbul airport has it, Amsterdam airport has it, I believe Seoul, Korea airport has it, Dubai has it. At the airport, they call it landside and airside. So landside is outside before you get through security. But once you already go through security, it's airside, meaning that you're good, you can stay in there, you can do whatever you want to do in there without having to leave the airport and then have to go through security again. When you delay and you try to avoid leaving the airport and come back in because there's a lot of hassle, then you want to stay inside. Some of those airports will have airside hotel, which I have stayed at before myself. So if it ever happened where you had a super long over, whether you plan it in advance or if it just happened that your flight got delayed, then just check out your airport first to see if your airport has an airside hotel. Just make sure, look into that if you can. If they have it, go for it. And if they don't, I'm sure there's other options like a lounge area somewhere that's open 24 hours. But if it's within the 3 hours of your flight, then you can go to one of these free lounges. That's tip number 7. Now, tip number 8 is comes to at your destination. I would suggest to always learn a few phrases in the language of the country you're visiting. A few simple things like hello, goodbye, thank you, where's the bathroom? Little things like that will help you go a long way, because when you're in another foreign country and you attempt to speak that language, people will really appreciate you and they will go above and beyond for you. So those are some of the travel tips. The next 2 tips that I'm gonna give you, it pertains to travel shopping tips. This I would say is more towards Europe, when you're shopping in Europe, because that's probably the only place that I wanna shop luxury. I usually don't shop luxury in Asia or in other countries. I shop things that are made from that country. That makes sense. So let's say if I go to Europe, I buy things that are made in Europe. I'm not going to go to Asia and buy things that are made in Europe, or I'm not going to go to Europe and buy things that are made in America. It doesn't make sense as far as price-wise, because things that are made in that country, it would be cheaper versus if you buy that same thing from another country. Because if they sell it to you from where it's made, they don't have to pay export taxes, they don't have to pay duties, they don't have to pay for transportation, they don't have to pay for all these costs that are associated with shipping the item to another country and sell it to you there. That's why if you buy things that are made in Europe, then the price would be cheaper. it would be the cheapest. So that brings us to like, you know, Chanel, Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Loewe, Dior, like all these luxury brands. Most of them are made in Europe. So when you go to Europe, it's the cheapest. And then I think UK is also cheap because they're neighbor. It doesn't take that much work to ship it to UK. But in America, it would be more expensive. But then when you go to Asia, it's even more expensive. And Australia. So everywhere it's going to be more expensive than Europe. When you actually go shopping in Europe, a lot of the store will ask you, how do you want to pay? Like, do you want to pay in euro or do you want to pay in US dollars? So you have the option to choose. My advice is that always pays in that local currency. So if you shop in Europe, always pay in euro. Never select US dollars, because what that machine does is that it converts for you. If you select US dollars, the machine will convert it at whatever rate that they have, not the market rate. So you actually just spend more money if you select US dollars because they convert it for you and there's fees and things that they included in there. So you ended up not saving that much money if you select US dollars. But if you select euros, then you pay whatever the price of the item, and your bank, your credit card, they will convert it for you at your bank's rate. And usually your bank's rate is going to be the best rate compared to any other merchant rate because they pack on a lot of fees and stuff. And with these credit cards, there is also no international transaction fee, which is another thing that I forgot to mention earlier as one of the perks to get these travel credit cards. The next tip is regarding to the VAT refund. So VAT is the value added tax. So when you go shopping in Europe, the price that you see for the item already included the VAT. So if you see it's 2,000 euro, it's 2,000 euro. Whereas in the US, the price you see is not the price you pay because that's the price and then you have to include tax. And depends on where you are in the States, the tax can fluctuate. But in Europe, all the price you see is the price you're gonna pay before your refund. And how VAT refund works, this is just a simple way to put it. So the VAT refunds, let's say all the items included VAT. And VAT could be 20% to 25%. That doesn't mean that you're gonna get all of that back. You only get a certain percentage of that back. The day that you plan to go shopping, you have to bring your passport with you because you're gonna need that for the store to do the paperwork for you. Once you purchase the item, the store will give you something like this. Actually, I have it here. I'll show it to you. The store will give you a little envelope like this. And this is from Global Blue. So there are a couple of different tax refund companies. They will use certain company and it's really up to the store. So they will take your passport. They will fill everything out for you. And then they'll give you a form like this. Here's the VAT. So the VAT is 20%. This is the amount of the total VAT right here. And then this is the total price. So this price already includes this tax. The tax included was $658. So the cocoa handle was $3,950. And I got back $513. Pretty much I pay about 3,437 euro. Yeah, so they will give you a form like this. And then they will put the form and your receipt and everything into an envelope like this. I would keep all of them together in one place so I don't lose them, because if you don't have this, you cannot claim your tax refund. So make sure you keep them very safe. What you do is when you get to the airport, you have to make sure you do this first. And you don't do this until you leave Europe. Let me just clarify that. So let's say if you're in France, but then you go to Netherlands, you go to Italy, you go all around Europe. So you don't claim this at every single destination. You only claim this once right before you leave the European Union. That last airport before I exit Europe is where I'm gonna claim my tax refund. And this is another thing that I had to learn the hard way too, is that most places, they're not gonna care to see your items unless it's an expensive item. Then they wanna see it. Like let's say in France, they have these automated machines that you just scan the barcode. So let's say I go to the airport and I just scan this barcode right here. So this is before you go through security. So don't go through security, do this first. So when you scan and it gives you a green check, then you're good as far as custom. But when it gives you an X, meaning you still have to get a manual custom stamp for that particular item. Whatever items it is that you get an X, you have to go see custom for it. And this is the reason why you don't want to check anything in case they want to see the items. And this is another tip that I can give you based on my own experience, is that anything with a higher price tag, they're going to stop me and they're going to want to see the item, because they will only give you your tax refund if you're still in possession of your items and the items have not been used. So if you buy something and you used it already, they're not going to give you the refund. Like a handbag is easy to show that you haven't used it. Like, how can you tell if you use it or not? But if it's a pair of shoes, they're going to see if you wear it. So yeah, you just want to make sure that all of your items is easily accessible, where you can take it out and show it to them. I put them in a dust bag to show them that, hey, it's brand new. So even though if they're not in the box, but they're in the dust bag inside my bag, then they're okay with it. However, if you're in different countries, their rules might be different. I was in Portugal, and Portugal has an entire different rules where they want to see everything. Even my Zara shirt. From my experience, at least, I've never been asked to show small items. And the thing with Portugal is that you can't even do your tax refund before you enter security. A lot of countries, the reason why they do before you enter security is that you have all your checked items, you have all your luggage, and you do this in case they ask for it. And then after that, you check in your bag and then you go through security. The way Portugal do it is that you have to check in your bag, you have to go through security, and then you do your tax refund inside with custom. But then when I get to that point, all my clothes were already in my check bag. But that's just lesson learned that, you know, things could be very different anywhere you go. So the rules might not always be the same, but just keep in mind that the big ticket items that you always want to keep them with you, because you don't know when they're going to ask for it. Just be prepared for all of that. And some countries makes it so easy. France makes it so easy, but some country could be very difficult. And then also the last thing on the tax refund is that, like I mentioned, the biggest company is the Global Blue. Now they're very automated. They have an app for you to download. So what I do is before I go, I download the app, and then you sign up for your account. And then when you buy, because it links into your passport number, so when you buy anything and your passport is being entered in, it goes into your Global Blue account. So that way it tracks all of your refund. You still have to go through this, but at least you have everything in the app for you, so that it's easier for you to track all of your refunds and make sure everything is on there correctly. Now we are down to tip number 10, which is holiday. So why would holiday be a tip? People in Europe, they take their holidays very serious. Especially stores like Chanel, Hermes, they will close on holidays. So if you plan your trip and you're only gonna be there for a day or two and you want to do all the shopping you can, look at the calendar and make sure that they don't have a holiday where they will be closed. And also, beside holiday, a lot of them will also close on Sunday. Not every store will close, but stores like Hermes, they will close on Sunday. If you plan to go shopping, just keep that in mind, that you can buy, maybe shop other store, but some store will close, some store will be open. But it's best to dedicate a day that is not a Sunday to go shopping, because everything else will be open. So make sure it's not a Sunday and make sure it's not a holiday. But yeah, that would be tip number 10. And a bonus tip is just go. Don't wait to travel. Travel now if you can. It's to create beautiful memories with yourself or your loved ones. So yeah, just go out there, have fun, and be safe. And that would be all of my tips for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoy. And if you have any travel tips that you want to share, please put it down in the comment below. And that would conclude today's video. And don't forget to stay tuned for our next week pack and tip video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye for now.